the scorching Central African sun beats down on the fertile Upemba Depression in the late 16th century. In this lush, well-watered valley straddling the upper reaches of the Lualaba River, a collection of small fishing villages and iron-working settlements have taken root over the past millennium. Though scattered, these communities engage in a flourishing trade network that radiates out from the depression into the surrounding plateaus and forests. It was during this setting of growing economic prowess that a young hunter named Ilunga Kiluwe emerges from the eastern forests in the 1580s. Making his way to the fledgling town of Mwibale, nestled along the shores of Boya Lake, he encounters the rising power of King Kongolo Mwamba. The ambitious Kongolo had united many of the local villages under his banner, forming the nascent Luba Kingdom with Mwibale as its first capital. Impressed by Ilunga's skills and reputation, Kongolo welcomes the hunter into his royal court. He even arranges for Ilunga to marry both his two sisters, Bulanda and Mabele, at the same time, in a symbolic joining of the noble and common bloodlines. For a time, Ilunga and the increasingly influential Kongolo made an formidable partnership driving the expansion of the young kingdom. But as Kongolo's dominance grew and his thirst for power intensified, suspicion began to form in this once strong alliance. Tensions fray between the egotistical king and his once trusted hunter ally. In a dramatic severance, Ilunga abandons the court, leaving behind his two royal wives to return to his ancestral lands east of the Lualaba. When Ilunga left, he left one of his wives, Bulanda, pregnant. She bore him a son, Kalala Ilunga. Raised in the turbulence of the rift between his father and uncle, Kalala grows into a formidable warrior and skilled hunter, bearing the strengths of both lineages. As Kalala came of age and his warrior prowess becomes renowned, he lends his blade to his uncle Kongolo's expansionist campaigns, pushing the borders of the fledgling Luba Kingdom ever southward. Yet Kongolo's jealousy towards his overly accomplished nephew steadily festers. The rift between king and warrior grows as wide as the one separating Kalala from his estranged father Ilunga across the Lualaba. Eventually, ambition and resentment boil over into outright conflict. In a daring coup, Kalala and his long-gone father Ilunga join forces to violently overthrow the increasingly despised King Kongolo. Through bloody dynastic struggle, a new era is forged as Kalala emerges to take up the crown of the Luba empire his uncle had built. Under Kalala's rule, the kingdom entered a golden age of expansion and prosperity unmatched by his predecessors. His two sons, Walefu and Chibinda, carried this legacy forward over successive generations. By the reign of Kumwimba Gombe in the late 18th century, the Luba sphere of influence stretches from the Lualaba River all the way to the pristine shores of Lake Tanganyika. Yet this rapid rise of imperial dominance over the Upemba Depression was powered as much by spiritual forces as economic and military ones. For just as the political hierarchy falls into place, a powerful religious culture took root and spread by a privileged priestly class. These mystics travel the realm, ingratiating themselves with the common folk by tapping into their most primal hopes and dreads. With honeyed tongues, they promise bountiful harvests, fertile lands, and growing tribes to the peasant populations. Spellbinding rituals and claims of magical powers enrapture the masses, binding them to the spiritual milieu. The reverence of ancestral spirits and the divine counsel of the dead become interwoven into this cultural fabric. Women played a central role upholding these mystical traditions. Artisans craft intricately carved wooden headrests depicting sacred feminine idols meant to channel otherworldly counsel. Such sacred regalia becomes highly prized by the ruling elite and those of elevated rank within the Luba Kingdom's growing urban centers. As the empire's earthly influence radiated outward, so did the ecclesiastic arm licensing dominion over the ancestral lands of the Upemba Depression. As the Luba Empire blossomed into a pre-colonial African power, its cultural accomplishments kept pace with its territorial expansions. The kingdom's cities and royal compounds became vibrant centers of artistic production by highly skilled artisans and craftsmen, Wood sculptors, metal workers, and stonecutters found elite patronage crafting both religious idols and symbols of secular power and status. Those who excelled at rendering sacred feminine figures, intricate headrests, or prophetic staffs were lavishly rewarded with property and high ranks befitting their esteemed talents. This intertwining of the artistic and the divine meant much of the finest work remained, concentrated in noble holdings and away from the wider populations. The most exquisite pieces embodied the mystic spiritualism, granting divine legitimacy to the Luba king's earthly reign. Yet this comfortable existence of an ascendant kingdom built on trade, artistry, and entrenched traditional hierarchy could not endure forever, as the empire reached its peak in the late 18th century under Kumwimba Ngombe. However, a perfect storm began gathering on the periphery which the kingdom was not ready to deal with. The Luba's elaborate governmental structure, with the sovereign king presiding over a council of nobility and clan chiefs, had ensured political stability for generations. But this delicate system bent, then broke under multiplying outside pressures. Avaricious European traders, coursing along the eastern maritime routes, soon sought to bypass the Luba altogether as middlemen in their inland dealings. More ominously, the Belgian colonial vanguard began making inroads by the mid-19th century, backed by firepower and Machiavellian ambition. As discontent and famine spawned by these outside exploitations festered, the fractures in the ancestral order became irreparable. By 1889, facilitated by outside forces, outright civil war engulfed the once strong kingdom in a vicious struggle to maintain unity and self-determination. Though a tenuous peace was brokered after 6 brutal years of conflict, the Luba kingdom as it was known could not be reassembled. Its former cohesion splintered, the ancient empire unraveled from within, even as European hegemony formalized its dissolution as a subject territory. And this is how sun set on the era of the Luba's supremacy over the Upemba lands they had ruled and molded for over 3 centuries.